when I said Streamlit is totally like it's totally about like interactive web application based and the application dashboards visualization we can run. You feel like a web development experience, but um, it totally depends upon like how the designs you want and how the UI looks what you want. Especially you can integrate with the different systems. So this is very important to know, especially when you're working on the Python. So Python is do everything with Python. We do everything, right? But when you're connecting with Streamlit, when you do data analysis in Python, suppose let's take pandas. Hope you know these pandas.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, uh, if you don't know anything about much Python, please let me know. I'll explain you in Python side things as well. It's fine because at the end, if you understood, that's fine.
Yes.
So, um, so coming to the pandas, so where we use the Python to read the data from any sources like Excel, CSV, TSV, JSON, Parquet, take any file formats
Right.
or any database connectivities. We'll use the PyODBC connectors to connect to databases, to connect to the SQL Server, Oracles, and all the transactional databases. And same way, we have there are many ways of drivers to connect to data from your source system to the pandas, and from the pandas, where here you're going to make it as a tabular format, tables, and you're going to not tables, we call data frames.
Right. Right.
So data frames, and then where you're going to do the analyze the data. Mainly you do the cleaning things,
Right.
cleansing, and then transforming. And you are going to do the enriched data. So that enriched data, you're going to connect with the Streamlit. So the beauty of connecting these Python, for example, the pandas, connecting with the Streamlit integrations is very easy way of connecting. So which is like we're going to create like a st dot table. We call st dot table like use a Streamlit dot table. So when you do the storage analysis, everything with pandas, at the end, you're going to store the data in pandas data frame and you display everything as Streamlit table. It means
Right.
it is not something like I'm using a Streamlit package, going to do all transformations. No. Streamlit is just helping you design of your data. But
Right.
but where is your data? What you're doing with your data? Where actually the functionality you're doing with the data? So that's all you're doing using the Python packages.
Right. Right.
So when you use pandas, numpy, scipy, take any type of the Python packages, you're going to use it to do this type of activities. It depends on your requirement, like a storing, analysis, transformations. It depends upon what level of transformations, the functionalities, everything. You can do everything on the background application, background job. And top of that, we can just build a beautiful UI with the Streamlit functionality.
Right.
So that is the what you need to understand. It looks like, hey, oh, okay, I did everything in Streamlit. No, it's not like everything you did with the Streamlit. So it is like some functionality, some functions, some libraries we used in the back end. Just we are showing like UI in the front end. When you do some operations on the UI, so suppose on the UI, I'm just making some operations. Like for example, in the Streamlit, we'll make a dashboard. So we just simply treat like a bank applications. When you
Right.
see some our bank apps, if you do some net banking or mobile applications, is it something is doing on the application? No. Application on the UI is just all the buttons. So you
Right.
just do the mouse clicks,
Right.
everything. And when you do the mouse click here, that will trigger the backend, the functionality. So the functionality is everything is going to run in the Python libraries. So it means why I'm explaining this is you got very good flexibility because you're using the Python functionality which is a vast of libraries, which is we have a lot of functions and libraries and packages. You can use it for any type of requirement.
Right.
So that's the way. And coming to the Snowflake integrations with the Streamlit, see, if they don't have a snow park, you will not get this feature. That's sure.
Nice.
So because they have a Python connectivity like a snow park things,
Mhm.
they got this feature.
Right.
Um, So I'm sure in future they're going to integrate multiple apps like this for data science apps,
Right.
something like a data IQ. Data IQ, there's a tool called Data IQ. It's a fully data science machine learning algorithms, fully automated AI things.
Okay.
So and even Snowflake has they have their own AI. I'm sure they are going to integrate that in future with these applications.
Mhm.
So because at the end, the data is important. They have the data, so they
Right.
can do anything. They can integrate any tools.
Right.
Okay, on this one, so you need to first we'll go with the basics understanding about like how the headers and how the formats and how the buttons and everything, how this UI is going to work, especially when you're playing with the data. It depends upon data format, where what data you want to display. For example, as I said, the tabular way of handling. For example, no, you want to display just the data frame level, or you want to display something like a JSON format, or if you want to display something like a metric level, you can use metric level. So Streamlit. So we actually so we import Streamlit, for example, alias CST, and we'll use all the functionality as STs.
Right.
Um, and then we will start creating the within a part of the we'll create multiple functionalities on the Streamlit. Inside, we will use different functions like storing, processing, transformations. And
Mhm.
finally, we'll call all the functions. For example, let's say in my project, I'm using multiple functions.
Mhm.
So we'll use multiple functions. So the functions, some functions like a reading, and some functions like a cleansing, and some functions is like some transformations, or data profiling. There are multiple things, and finally the enriched things. So so we have link up with the flow of the data is like this. But at the end, when you're coming to the Streamlit function, we are going to integrate the enriched one. So which is a two-way of connectivity. So it's two-way of connectivity. So on this here on the Streamlit, if I do, if I have many metrics here, I'm going to fill all the required details and everything, and I'll put some buttons like a submit or some action buttons, which is when you do the action here, the action will trigger the enrich functionality, and then it is going to fetch that the results based on how you design the UI things. That's what the process. But at the
Okay.
end, it depends. Are you going to use it everything in the same code of Python or different codes and you just link up? So you can actually beautifully design the way of handling with the functionalities instead of making like if instead of making a mess like putting everything in a one and then running. Instead of that, we can make functionality wise and then you can easy to interact with the Streamlit integrations.
Got it. Okay.
And yeah, and
Yes, sir. Go
coming to
ahead.
the data. Sorry, if you have questions, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, no. I was just gonna elaborate. So it's basically instead of putting the entire code in maybe one .py file, you could
Yeah,
create modules or different, uh, like different functionality goes into different .py files in a
yeah,
module, way, and then you are basically calling those different uh, uh, like piece of code or functionality by referencing the other .py files. Is that what you're?
exactly,
Okay. Okay.
exactly. So it is nothing but basically it's about like how you organizing. It totally
Right.
depends upon what size of the requirement,
Right.
what
Right.
size of the functionality requirement. So because when you deploy this into the cluster, like on the GitHub, on the CI/CD pipelines, you know, so it'll be very easier way of handling deployments as well. If you put everything in a once, and if that once breaks, everything will break. So,
Right.
so we'll make sure that we build correctly and then organized correctly as a functionalities, and then we can handle it. And coming to the charts, the charts and the things like how internally it will work. So basically, when you do on the UI, okay, so just imagine like a paper, newspaper of things, like you have a title, subtitles, and
Mhm.
you're going to give the inputs here. So the text inputs, like
Right.
what types of the input, there are multiple types of inputs. So you can use text inputs or buttons or drop down lists. It
Right.
depends.
Right.
So how, for the I like the way of handling, instead of putting the text inputs, like one of my project, how we handle is like we put the drop down list, something like this. And on this drop down list, something like this will get, and we have not given anything manually into the list. This is actually coming from database table.
Right.
One of table I have, suppose in my table, one of the column called domain. So
Right.
I want to display that domain into this drop down.
Right.
So when I have already read the data here, I'll call this reading functionality a link up here. You see?
Yeah. Yeah.
So because I'm already reading from database, some
Right.
database. So when I'm reading a database already, you can take from reading, or you can take from the cleanse layer or transformation layer, or you can take from the enrich layer directly. It depends upon um, what type of the data you want into the drop down list. So
Right.
which means the beauty here is it's easy to play. It's not something like we are sending. It's not something like um, we are requesting some loan application or something. Just put the submit button. All our inputs will go and it will come the results. It's not like that. It is something like that. Is we got different features are available. You just use it like based on your requirement. You can use drop down sometimes. You can use the text input sometimes. And once you click those buttons and everything, at the end, you can just define what is the output you want, how you want to play with this, um, the integrations as well. So with the results as well. And even here, we can create the multiple pages as well. Um, so it's something like in Streamlit, they'll give you an option called pages. So it means you can put all your pages. What is the meaning of pages? Is nothing but you can put all your Streamlit applications, like suppose Streamlit app.py, let's say.
Mhm.
Um, and the second one, app1.py. Suppose third one, app2.py, something like this. If we have multiple applications, something, so you want to give users to all these application access. So I'll put something like a home dashboard. We just imagine like a website,
Mhm.
something. So when the user will come to the home dashboard and he can see all these pages internally, and then he can come directly to the first page. You want to something, you can play it. So for example, first page have a customer, second page is orders, and third one is something different. Fourth one is different requirement. It depends upon the requirements. You can organize multiple pages also. Within a page also, you can divide
Mhm.
internally as a sub, but yeah, on differently you can access with the multiple pages as well. So so this is also one of the best feature I think I see. Um, so the access, and there are multiple things we need to discuss before starting the practicals about like the visualizations, how the visualization is going to work. So on the visualization part, Streamlit have their own set of charts.
Mhm.
So you can just define what type of the charts you want. For example, if it is a line chart, you just define line underscore chart and you'll just pass the required values in the chart, the required columns and the values, everything. So something like a bar chart, you can just define something like a bar chart and something like area chart. So like this, we have set of charts out there. So when we see the more coming to the practicals, you will see how to play all these charts and everything. But the functionality, even you can use the Python PyPlot charts as well.
Okay.
Um, I like the one of the feature import from Outlier. Outlier charts are very good. So this is also we can integrate with this. And if there is any map integrations, we can use the Streamlit map integrations as well. We can keep that as a one
Okay.
box in the UI as well. Um, and we have different layouts internally. So when I say layout, so we have, if we say this one, sidebar, we have, so this is separately organized by the Streamlit. So they'll call this as Streamlit.sidebar. Um, so which is nothing but this is going to connect on the sidebar of things. So suppose if you want to put some filters or
Mhm.
you want to put something like on the left side of the sidebar, instead of you keeping on the center, you want to put all the things on the left. For
Mhm.
example, so here the first drop box, drop down, or the input um, and everything. Suppose, um, and we can put something like some submit button here, let's
Mhm.
say, and then and you want to see the results on the right side,
Mhm.
something. So you can do that. So you'll see the results and everything on the right side. So like this, we can play. So like in the whole page, you can organize this type of things. Like you can use the sidebar, whatever you're doing on actually the menu, you can do on the left side with the sidebar. For example, title, subtitle, buttons, columns. You can use expander, container, anything. You can
Okay.
do all these things. So and how these variables are going to organized um, the storing the data. So Streamlit has a feature which is called session state management thing. So which is nothing but Streamlit is will allow you to store your variables values. See,
Okay.
when you play with these applications, we are not going to define all variable values on directly on the code. We'll
Right.
send as a variables and we'll store somewhere in the repository we'll use some secret server integrations or something like authentication integrations. It depends upon the keys and security we're going to define on the back end. So Streamlit has the best feature is it will allow you to store and to persist your variables across all your application, the whole application. Across your application it can store. So it is not something like to rerun every time to get those. It is something like once you run, so which is going to maintain all your data. Um, so, for example, when you do the store counter, storing some counting selections, dynamic UI elements, you don't need to reinitialize the variables again. The problem with is whenever you reinitialize the variables again, it will
Mhm.
consume a lot of resources. It will take time and resources. But because it has a cache and it can improve the performance by avoiding this type of activities. Um, so like that.
Okay.
And even you can especially on the forms, the
Mhm.
automatic forms, Streamlit forms we call as st dot forms, Streamlit forms. So these forms we is going to preventing the automatic re-execution until you press the submit button. So it'll be on a static session, which is like all the variables and values are already stored on your code you define, and then it is going to store. And when you submit, the actual action will start. So, which by this way, um, your application will not refresh until you submit.
Okay.
Um, but it is going to handle your state of your session. And we
Okay.
have some callback actions also, uh, like if suppose if you see the session state is something that dynamically change or not, and it depends upon like how you are storing the states. For example, we have some states will store as a dictionaries, um, they can store as a lists,
Mhm.
and even we can store your data frames as well on the sessions. So which is nothing but at the situation of the session, it is going to handle. This is very helpful when you play with the multiple app pages integrations or the chatbot integrations, because on the chatbot integrations, we have some static data is there until the question comes differently or the question comes uh, dynamically required answers. So for that, which is required triggering, but the static way of like there are some FAQ, let's say for FAQs, we don't need to go for dynamically integrations to things. We can just use it the question answer, just integrate some natural language integrations where you can easily answer things. You don't require AI for this. So we require some dynamic AI related like NLP and those things only for the dynamic type of questions, right? So those type of things we can go out of session state.
I see.
So
So when you say
yeah.
like which user has logged in, like user ID of the session, or uh, like what other like session manage when you say session management, right? I understand like the variables that are defined or selected by the user, like through the drop down, or uh, basically all of that falls in the scope of session management, or
Yes. So it's which is something like when the Streamlit run the scripts. So whatever the every user interaction, for
Mhm.
example, clicking the buttons or entering the text, um, everything it is going to store. It is going to store on the session.
Okay.
In olden days, suppose if anything goes wrong, suppose if any session goes wrong on something, you have to enter again. You have to do it again. So without session state, all variable will be reset for every run. But
Hmm.
here, it is going to store persistent on that session related. So across when you rerun the applications many times, so it will help you to track of all the user inputs, counters based on the selections. We don't require much computation. We don't require much computation. It will just avoid the unnecessary recomputation things. And
Okay.
which is the dynamic actually. Dynamic so it's going to create a dynamic interactive applications by this way, by storing the session state managements. So, but we will define some inputs um, where where you can define which variable you want to store. For example, let's say I'm going to store name equal to streamlit dot. Suppose I'm taking text input, which is nothing but you're giving a text input as input.
Mhm.
Suppose. So when you do this one, what you can do is you can store this session name. I'll store this state into the name, which is nothing but you're going to store this value as internally as a variable. So I'm just storing the state as a name, this variable. So in future, it'll be stored. And whenever, for every user interaction, you can get these values. So that, I mean, this text input value will remains even after user interactions. Even after user interactions completed, it'll be useful. It means it is not useful for every scenario. Depends upon like what variables you have to store, what variables we don't have. For example, I want to know how the users are selecting. How users, okay, I'm coming to Google, I'm entering some keywords.
Mhm.
For example, you click the something like a Streamlit, UI example, something, someone will come like a Streamlit example, someone will come like a Streamlit dashboards, something.
Right.
So, which is like I'm going to store all these states, the session states as the variables for the future analytics or the future usage, for the future usage or future analytics as well. Like how the Google is doing now. Based on our search, they're doing analytics and they're giving the same thing to again to our users. Okay, this is the repeated searches.
Right.
Same
Okay.
like that. Yeah, the same like that. So, which is useful in many scenarios, but which is confidential. It is not something like we'll enter some personal informations or
Right.
something
Right.
um, to make it confidential. It depends upon, that's why I said this depends upon what variables you're going to store it as session state. Um, so that you have a definition of handling to define the process. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a high level of the things. So mainly we have to focus on the how to integrate this Streamlit integrations, Streamlit deployments, like starts with the installing the packages, and then how we can start with this. So basically, there are multiple ways of using. For example, Streamlit you can directly install on our mission, local mission, which is like we do the pip install Streamlit. It's a easy way we can install, and we're going to run with application. It's not something like we run with the Python, some application. Normally we do Python application.py, right? Something if there is
Right.
any application run. But Streamlit is different way because Streamlit is triggering a UI. So
Right.
Streamlit has to give so Streamlit run and then your which is
Uh,
app py, which is nothing but it contains the Streamlit packages and everything. So which is very important. Um, and then once we enter into the Streamlit app, we'll start to play with the data, the data with the taking Python packages, like using as I said pandas, NumPy. We're
mhm.
going to use multiple packages and layouts, and we'll start using that applications. So on high level, um, so as we discussed, oops, sorry. As we discussed on the Streamlit thing,
Mhm.
I would like to go through the high level things. So
Right.
basically, we'll set up the environment, like as part of the environment, which is nothing but see, basically, environment. It depends upon where you are running your applications.
Right. Right.
So when you run your application, for example, I'm using a Docker Python, let's say. When you're running on your Docker Python, on here itself, you're going to install your Streamlit applications. So you can package everything and you can deploy wherever you want to deploy. For example, in one of my previous projects, we used AKS cluster.
Okay.
So Azure Kubernetes clusters. So as part of this Kubernetes, we will use the pods. So as part of the pod, we will make it as a package. In the package, we will define the requirements, something like requirements .txt file. So when you give this file, the Docker, the pod will install all the required packages, and from here, it is going to enable it your code. So how this is going to work? On the requirement.txt, I'll specify, okay, install the Python, install the Streamlit, and then after that, you run the Streamlit app.py, for example. So which is triggering the your local host, if it's a local host, if it is a some customer, some system IP, you'll get IP with this 8080 some port number, and then it will come. So this is the process. So at the end, this is like one package, everything, one pod. And we deployed everything in AKS. Why? Because this has a duplicates. If any pod has a crash, and it'll other pod will take over that handling of the cluster. The
Mm.
same way, it depends upon where you're installing Streamlit. Okay, now as part of the training, we'll install locally and we'll present you. And the same way, we will play with the Snowflake Streamlit as well. But if you have something a requirement where you're installing in the separately in the clusters, uh, which is like a cloud agnostic integrations, it's not something like a native solutions. It's something like agnostics, where it's something we can connect multiple integrations with the multiple clouds, with the multiple systems. By that scenario, they must be have some Kubernetes clusters like we have AKS or GKS, Google Kubernetes cluster, or Azure Kubernetes cluster, or AWS Kubernetes cluster. They if they use any clouds, I mean, if there's
I
no
see.
clouds, they have their own Kubernetes clusters. Also, that we can uh, it integrate. That's what I said. The environment setup.
Okay.
So we will build some sample dashboards and everything. We'll see a lot internally, all the features, how they interact with widgets, especially we'll see the way of handling the input buttons. It's not something like we'll directly give the manual inputs. We give everything dynamic, but dynamic inputs. Like the dynamic inputs, as I said before, all the dynamic inputs is coming from some databases, some tables, or something. They'll give you some Excel files or CSV files or some tables, as I said, or it's something coming from API as well, application as well. What it is nothing but there is somewhere, there is a server. The server has is giving a functionality with the API integration, and so here I used a Python connectivity to call that API and get that result and put that result on the drop down.
Mm.
Put that result on the drop down. So
Okay.
which means why? Because at the end I'm looking everything dynamically here on the real time.
Right.
So when I say API is always real time, connecting the application, um, and from here we're connecting this way. So like this, if suppose in your requirement is not API, something database, okay, let's can use database. That's fine. So it depends upon how you want to give. So like this, to be honest, we can play with this. It's not something, okay, this way has to design. No,
Right.
it's totally a Python. It's totally your requirement. If
Right.
you if you got a clarity on your requirement, if you design, okay, this is the what we want. Okay, on 99.9%, you don't have any trouble. The way of your architecture design, we can implement straight away. Maybe you'll get some types of issues, especially dealing with the complex transformations. Streamlit is become a slow, but on your the scenario, it will never, because you are using a Snowflake. It's very faster performances. So
Okay.
when you're working on locally or in the Dockers, that may you see different way. So yeah, that's why we have interactive dashboards, and we will see, yeah, data frames. So as I said, when you're writing a data, if you write your data, you'll get directly as is. But you want to make it as data frame, or you want to make a tabular format, so you can define, you can display it. And visualization is a very important thing. We're going to see all these using these plots, everything, and data exploration tool, which is nothing but, you know, as I said before, on data analysis. Data analysis is a very important job.
Mhm.
Normally, what we do, you're going to SQL Server or Snowflake or Oracle, like it depends upon your database UI.
Right.
You're going to write a queries, but
Mhm.
to be honest, you don't need to go for the UIs because you already connected your UI to Streamlit. You play those queries, you play those type of analysis, everything with the UI or without advanced UI. You can directly
Mhm.
play on the Streamlit. For example, I'm making an UI which is a friendly UI to the my team because my data analysis team don't have much knowledge on the SQL, but they don't have much SQL knowledge, but they want to do some analysis on the data. So we can build something like a UI analysis UI, and then they can just simply select the UI buttons to trigger the things, so it's easy to interact. You need to explore your data. What I mean is, you can easy to explore your data. We're going to create a multiple widgets to filter analyzing your data,
Right.
and based on your clicks, we can visualize the data for dynamically updates. For example, especially this is actually started for data science. How data science team they use initially after they do a lot of graphs instead
Right.
of instead of running on the graphs on the Python. So what they did is they want to do the analysis with the graphs on some UI, and they've started playing with this based on their selections. Remember the keyword based on their selecting a dynamically attributes. They are seeing on the right side how the visualization things. So like those type of things, we can easily hand it. And I mentioned here is the Kafka for the integrating the real-time data. You can integrate with anything, but
Oh,
I would like to show you with the real-time dashboards, how the metrics, how the KPIs, we call KPI,
mhm.
um, key performance indicators, like the sales of the business, revenue of the business,
Mhm.
something like that. The top keywords you can highlight in the Streamlit dashboard, and based on your selection of the requirement filterings, the key KPIs will change dynamically from the source data to Streamlit. I would like to show that with Kafka data pipeline because Kafka is a real-time data ingestion pipeline.
Okay.
So of course we'll go with the Snowflake much a lot because as part of your requirement also there is that, so it's fine. And we can see some types of cloud integrations as well, and we'll see some actually projects about like how we are going to integrate with this. So this is a high level
Okay.
thing today what we discussed, and I would like to start practical, but we don't have much time today, so we'll start from tomorrow the actual
Okay.
practical
Okay.
sessions. One by one we'll see the topics, and yeah, we'll see, and I'll share these recordings every day end of the class so you can
Okay.
access.